Hey guys, welcome to another Destiny 2 video with my face in it. Today we're going to go over all the past TWABs where we've gotten information on some of the changes that are coming on December 7th with the 30th anniversary update. I'm always kind of hesitant to make these videos of like reading the TWAB, but a lot of you guys say that you enjoy them and you like kind of going through it via video instead of reading it yourself, because I can maybe add some commentary that can be helpful. So we're going to go back and kind of summarize the last few TWABs, paying attention to the changes that are coming on December 7th. So we're only going to go through changes that are upcoming here in the next week. So the first TWAB we're going to take a look at is November 11th right here. If we scroll down, we can see that they're talking about the 30th anniversary update that we're going to be getting in December. We're talking about weapons and perks. So there are going to be some changes to our weapon perks and some changes to weapons themselves. So let's take a look at them. For shotguns, they're going to be reducing our slug shotgun PvE damage bonus from 30% to 20%. So they don't want them to kind of dominate the damage meta, which honestly with the artifact mods that we get, usually whatever is in that artifact mod is the weapon of the season, i.e. fusion rifles for this season. And then they also gave our other pellet shotguns a 10% PvE damage bonus. So it seems like they want to make all shotguns relevant in PvE, which is nice. They're also giving linear fusion rifles a 10% flat damage buff in PvE, which is great because they're going to need them once this fusion rifle particle deconstruction mod goes away in February come Witch Queen. But from the time that this patch comes out in December till Witch Queen, linear fusion rifles are going to be really, really nice. Next up is caster swords. They're reducing the heavy attack ammo cost, which is nice, but I don't think we'll see much of a meta shift there with caster swords. Bows are seeing another bump up in damage against rank and file enemies, so your red bar enemies, by 10%, which is going to be super nice. It's going to be great to have like dragonfly or explosive head type bows for those rank and files. Those are always really nice in GMs or seasons where we have a champion mod for bows. Up next, we have exotics. So these are specific exotics that they're tuning. First up is Vex Mythoclast, which I'm sure all of us could see coming that have either been a victim of it in PvP or have used it this season with the fusion rifle buffs that we have in the artifact. They're reducing the aim assist stat. They are reducing the linear fusion rifle mode aim assist cone. If you do like the alt fire, once you get a certain number of kills, they're also requiring 3 elims for a full overcharge instead of 2, so it's gonna be harder to kind of rack up those kills to get that linear fusion rifle mode. For Fighting Lion, they removed the multi-hit requirement for the increase in reload speed. So now if you deal any damage, you're going to get a big increase in reload speed, and they're actually buffing that, which is really nice, and they're increasing the buff duration. I don't really use Fighting Lion that much, so I don't know if that's going to be a huge deal in PvE, but I don't really see it being used that much as a meta weapon anyway. For Arbalest, they're adding the intrinsic anti-barrier for champion mods, so this is going to be a great addition for grandmasters and high endgame content, because Arbalest is already really great against enemy shields, so you can use it in a match game scenario, and now it's going to have anti-barrier, which is even better. It's also going to be really good up until February when we still have particle deconstruction and those fusion rifle mods. Just keep in mind that you can't do like double duty champ mods. You can't have an intrinsic anti-barrier and then also put fusion unstoppable fusion rifle on it as well. It doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, I wish it did. And then we've got Sleeper Stimulant, which not only is it getting that 10% base damage buff for the linear fusion rifles, it's also going to increase its mag size from 3 to 4 and increasing PvE damage by 6%. So Sleeper could be a good option for PvE boss damage. Next up, we've got Asuros. They will be changing the dual mode receiver to grant 30 range and 3 zoom in addition to its current effects. So just adding a little bit more on there to entice people to use it a little more. And then we get down here to Cryocesia, which is the Stasis sidearm, which has got a lot going on. They are removing the variable trigger completely and now fires on trigger press instead of release. So it's a lot easier to get that charge up shot. The charge shot is moved to a special reload. So getting a final blow with the sidearm enables access to the special reload, Once the charged shot is fired, the weapon reverts back to the standard mode. So it doesn't cost your entire magazine, and it's a lot easier to work with now. So maybe people will use it a little more, especially now that we have elemental wells and stuff like that that works off of stasis elemental weapons. And then the charge shot now causes an AoE, which freezes AI and slows players. Next up is Leviathan's Breath, which is the heavy bow, which not a lot of people use, even though they just got the catalyst like a couple seasons ago, I think, through the Wrathborn hunts. And it also has intrinsic unstoppable, but I don't think a lot of people like to use a bow in their heavy slot. But they are adding the Archer's Tempo perk to the catalyst. So now you're going to get a faster draw time when you hit those precision shots. Next up is Whisper of the Worm. They're reducing the delay on activating Whisper Breathing, which is great, 2.1 seconds to 1.2. White Nail Magazine refill charge. It was 3 from inventory, but now it's pulling 2 from inventory and 1 from thin air, so a way not to use your ammo as much. And they're also increasing the damage by 10% in PvE, which is great. All right, next up we've got Darcy, another heavy sniper rifle, which is getting buffed. They're reducing flinch, recoil, and accuracy by 50% when Personal Assistant is active. Personal Assistant now has a 1-second delay before deactivating when off target, and they're increasing their damage in PvE by 20%. Next up is Malfeasance, and they're increasing the explosion damage by 50%. Now, if you forgot what Malfeasance does, I picked it up here. It shoots tainted slugs that burrow into the enemy. Stacking enough causes them to explode. So the more shots that you burrow into the enemy and then you stack enough up, they explode. They're increasing that explosion damage by 50%. So it's going to be good on tankier targets, possibly like taken bosses and stuff like that. Malfeasance could be a good choice. Next up is Dead Man's Tale. They said they've seen a drop on console in use. I still use it, but in PvE. I don't really use it in PvP that much, but they are increasing the reticle friction fall off distance, less recoil, and improved accuracy. So they don't think that this is going to have a crazy effect on mouse and keyboard. I don't know. I don't play on PC, but they want to make sure that people are using it on console and are enjoying the weapon. So we'll see how that works. Then up next, we've got Lorentz Driver. They removed the ability energy regen on picking up a telemetry. Next up, we've got Traveler's Chosen, which I believe is going to be a really great weapon with the upcoming changes to the ability cooldowns, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but now grants 10% ability energy per stack on activation. Was previously more generous on lower stacks, less generous on higher stacks. So you want to have about 10 stacks because that's where it remains unchanged. And then they reduced the stacks granted on a Guardian defeat from 3 to 2. So they're kind of nerfing it a little bit in PvP, but not too much. All right, that is all the weapons that are changing, all the weapon archetypes and the exotics. Now we're talking about perks. This is a lot of information, guys, and I'm probably just going to put this with minimal editing into one video. So hopefully you guys can just use the chapters down below if you want to swap around. We've got Adrenaline Junkie, Vorpal, Whirlwind, and Pulse Monitor, which are getting updates in the December patch. All right, let's take a look. First up, Adrenaline Junkie. This perk wasn't performing as well as intended, so eliminations with the weapon can add single damage stacks or extend existing ones. Grenade elims boost the stacks immediately to 5. So this is going to be the new Swashbuckler, but instead of a melee going to 5, it's a grenade elim to 5. This is going to be extremely good on grenade builds, on demolition type builds. If you've got an elemental well build going where you're getting grenade energy back, and then your grenade kills are giving you max stacks on your weapons, and then you're using your weapons on some of the heavier enemies, etc. It's going to be really good. So let's pop over to D2 Gunsmith. We're going to take a look at Adrenaline Junkie, which is this perk right here. It's on most of the prophecy weapons, but it says grenade final blows grant bonus damage and handling for a moderate duration. Now it goes up to ×3 here on D2 Gunsmith, but over here on these notes, it says grenade eliminations boost the stacks immediately to 5. So I guess it's going to go even higher, but it says lowers the duration to compensate for weapon activation. So since elims with your weapon are going to add single damage stacks or extend existing ones, they're also going to lower the duration. So you have to constantly get the kills either with your grenade or with the Adrenaline Junkie weapon to keep up those stacks. And it sounds like they're going to add ×5 stacks. So my guess is that it's going to go up to the 35%, similar to how Swashbuckler does. I don't know what weapon has Swashbuckler on it. Okay, right here, Annual Skate. Yeah, so I think that Adrenaline Junkie is going to be a lot like Swashbuckler, where it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6%. Oh, you guys can't see that. All the way up to 33%, like that, instead of 1, 2, 3, like it currently shows here on The Last Breath. All right, so either way, Adrenaline Junkie is going to be a really, really great perk, especially if you have a grenade type build or elemental well, like I said. All right, up next is Vorpal Weapon. Now, this originally gave us 15% damage against bosses and vehicles, but now it's going to be 10% on heavy weapons, 15 on special, and 20 on primary. So what this means is you really want to get Vorpal Weapon on those champion mod type weapons. So for instance, this season, we have anti-barrier only on auto rifle. So if you had a primary auto rifle like the 7 Seraph Carbine or something like that, or the Swashbuckler, and you were able to run Vorpal on that, that would be extremely good for champions because you're getting 20% on that Vorpal. So you're actually getting a buff on the Vorpal mod for your primary. Special is staying the same, and heavy is actually getting a slight nerf. So some of the other perks are probably going to be better on heavy weapons. Next up is Whirlwind Blade. As you guys may or may not know, on the Falling Guillotine, this is the meta role. So let's see what they're doing to Whirlwind Blade. They're increasing the number of stacks needed to hit maximum damage from 5 to 10, which is a lot. You're not going to be doing like 10 swipes on Atrax before you do your heavy because it's going to be too late by that point. So they said this was obviously the best sword damage perk around. So instead of Whirlwind Blade, try to grab a Falling Guillotine with Surrounded. That's going to be your next best bet. Add on the Surrounded damage perk on that weapon as your mod, and it's going to give you an additional 35%, I think, when you are surrounded. So if it's a situation where you're only going to be doing damage to one enemy like Atrax, and there aren't going to be like a lot of enemies around you to give you that Surrounded perk, then that might not be the best. But if you're using it in a situation where there's a lot of enemies around, and Falling Guillotine is a good sword for that because of the circular heavy attack anyway. So Surrounded might be a better pickup instead of Whirlwind. All right, last up is going to be Pulse Monitor. So they're changing the threshold for activation from 90% health to 30% shield. So it requires much less to trigger. Let's refresh our memory on what Pulse Monitor is. Let's go back to Gunsmith. We got Fool's Remedy up here. And this is Pulse Monitor. Automatically reloads the mag and improves handling when critically wounded, even when the weapon is stowed. So this could be a great alternative to like auto loading because you're going to get weapon handling and magazine, and it does it while it's stowed or when it's out. So it doesn't have to be stowed to reload like auto loading. And I feel like it could be a pretty good mod in the future. Let me know what you guys think below if you think Pulse Monitor is going to be a good perk going forward or not. It's definitely a great change because I never really used Pulse Monitor that much in the first place, but let me know what you guys think. That is the end of the perks section. All right, we are on to the second TWAB that we want to take a look at for changes that are coming in the 30th anniversary update on December 7th. The first thing we're going to talk about in this TWAB is ability cooldowns. Now they're changing the way that they work. They're not just going to be the same across the board, no matter what subclass, no matter what element, besides how Stasis is now. They are basically putting them in their own little slots and tweaking the cooldowns of each different ability from each different subclass. So all the grenades are going to have different cooldowns, all of your different abilities and supers and stuff like that. So let's get into it. So there's a lot of examples that they go into, which I'm not going to go into specific examples. Obviously you can, oh my God, sorry. Obviously you can go back and read these TWABs. This is the one from November 18th, but they're talking about basically creating a bunch of these different knobs so that they can tweak these individual cooldowns. So this way they can give a higher cooldown to abilities that are stronger and a lower cooldown to abilities that are not as strong, so that they're more spammable. So you're going to get grenades like the Flux Grenade that are going to get an increase in damage, but also an increase in their cooldown. So their base cooldown is over double now, so from 82 seconds to 182 seconds, but they are also increasing the detonation damage if you attach them, so they're a one-shot kill in PvP, and they're increasing the damage versus PvE combatants by 15% on top of that base damage that is already there. They're making them stronger, but also increasing the cooldown, which I like a lot, because you could make a build all around decreasing the cooldown of your grenade and your abilities and go for these more stronger one-shot type grenade abilities. Or you could also go in the other direction and have a lot of spammable, lower damage grenades and stuff that come back really fast. So they go on to talk about different grenades and showing that we're going to be able to see our cooldowns on our subclass. So you can see which grenade you're choosing and which abilities you have and how those cooldowns are going to be different based on what you pick. It's also going to show here on your character screen, so on those different stats when you look down on your character. And then they also commented this, which I thought was really interesting. The base cooldown time is actually the cooldown time at tier 3 of the relevant armor stat. So it's not even at tier 1. So they're assuming you have tier 3. So if you have below tier 3, you actually have a longer cooldown than the base cooldown that shows on the character screen. So they're trying to make that more intuitive going forward. But they're calling this the variable ability cooldown system, and it's the beginning of a huge change for the sandbox in Destiny 2, and I totally agree. It is a foundational change. I mean, it is going to change everything. It's going to change the way we make our builds. It's going to change the choices that we make for what's meta and what's not, what we want to use for raids versus what we want to use for GMs and lost sectors, etc. Like, it's going to change a lot having this ability cooldown variables going on. It adds a lot more depth to the different builds that we see. So because they're doing this, they've made the cooldown times longer overall on average, because they don't want PvP to be so spammable with these abilities, which in my opinion, I don't really mind it as much, but I'm not one that takes Destiny PvP very seriously with like skilled gunplay. But to compensate this, they are increasing all grenade damage versus PvE combatants by 15% or more. So it seems like they can't change our cooldown rates differently from PvP to PvE, which I feel like would be pretty confusing anyway. So they're just changing the damage that these grenades and abilities and stuff do. So the next thing that they are changing and adding a variable cooldown to is supers, because those are basically a ability with a much longer cooldown. So they said in PvE, the super uptime shouldn't really be very much changed because you're getting tons of kills anyways. So if anything, it's gonna be slightly higher, but they're making it so that in PvP, you need to be involved in the fight, either doing damage, taking damage, getting kills, in order to build up your super faster. So intellect is going to have less of an effect on our super generation time, and it's going to be better for things like trials where you can't just like hide out until your super's ready in order to wipe the team. So I think that's great, and I think it will be great in PvE too, because it's going to encourage people to get lots of kills and do a lot of AoE, ad clear, and stuff like that. They also mention here that primary weapon play is going to have a noticeable benefit in super energy regen. So I think we're going to see a lot of primaries start coming out in PvP. They also mention here that primary weapon play is going to have a noticeable benefit in super energy regen. So that means we're going to be seeing a lot more of those primary weapons come out in PvE and in PvP, hopefully. And it's going to help people get those kills. So things like Vorpal on those primaries are going to be nice for champions and stuff like that. The next thing that they mention here is that each super is going to have like their own tier cooldown that's going to be kind of a base cooldown. So some are going to be longer than others. And they have a list here of all the super regen rate tiers that they're launching with on December 7th. So I thought this was really, really interesting that the only one in tier 5, which is the fastest regen, is Well of Radiance, which I thought is hilarious. I can't wait to see a bunch of people in PvP come December 7th running Well of Radiance and being the anti-stasis wonderful warlocks that they are, and dropping Well of Radiance down every 5 seconds. So do it. And then we've got Blade Barrage, Silence, and Squall. I cannot believe is tier 4, which means that that's going to be a fast one. So I can't wait to get back on my Hunter and be running that. We've got Shadow Shot, Burning Maul, Arc Staff, Nova Bomb, Thunder Crash in tier 3, kind of rounding out the middle of the group. And then we've got tier 2, which is a little bit longer. Then normal, Golden Gun, Chaos Reach, Nova Warp, Storm, Trance, Daybreak, and Sentinel Shield. And then we've got our slowest regen, which is down here at the bottom. We got Spectral Blades, Fist of Havoc, Hammer of Soul, Glacial Quake, and Winter's Wrath. So it looks like more of the roaming supers are down there in that category. So in PvP, they are also reducing the ability energy regen from these perks by 50% only in PvP, for this list right here that you can go ahead and read. But a lot of Stormcaller Warlock on here, Striker Titan, Dawnblade Warlock, some of the one of the stasis fragments here, but basically some of the ability regen they're lowering for PvP. And then same with the in super perks. These are going to be scaled down for PvP only. And that is Everlasting Fire for Dawnblade Warlock and Trample for Striker Titan. So you don't get that energy back. So you're not just like roaming around with a super, killing someone over and over from their spawn. And then for exotic armor, they're also going to be lowering the ability energy return only in PvP again. So if you wear any of these exotics in PvP, you might want to kind of make a mental note that on December 7th, if you feel like it doesn't work as good as it used to, then maybe start looking at some other exotic armor pieces. But we've got Frosty's, Heart of Inmost Light, Controverse Hold, Doomfang Pauldron, Shinobu's Vow, Crown of Tempest, and the Stag. And then we've also got armor mods, which are going to reduce their effectiveness in PvP only 50%. So you don't really want to be stacking a bunch of these mods, I don't think, anymore in PvP. You are going to probably get a lot of diminished return if you do that. So any of the kickstart mods, Perpetuation, Bolstering Detonation, Focusing Strike, Bomber, Outreach, Dynamo, Distribution, Momentum Transfer, Impact Induction, basically anything that's going to give you ability energy back, like cooldown reduced by doing something else. But basically in the final notes, they're talking about stasis crystals, saying that they are kind of reeling it back in a little bit because SHATTERDIVE is still pretty crazy in PvP. So they're still going to be good in PvE, but basically in order to get that one shot from the SHATTERDIVE, you're going to have all of the stars aligned in order to do that. And the detonation damage and radius is going to be a lot less. All right, next up on here is talking about Hunter Dodge, and this makes me very sad. And I really hope they take another look at this because I feel like Dodge, the Dodge class ability, like that's the Hunter's class ability. They should be able to, it should be more than just moving slightly to the side or moving slightly ahead or back or etc. You get what I'm saying? Anyways, the Hunter Dodge is no longer going to break projectile tracking. The Marksman Dodge, which is the reload one, tier 10 mobility cooldown increased from 11 to 14. The base cooldown unchanged at 29, sorry. Gambler's Dodge is the melee one. Tier 10 mobility cooldown increased from 11 to 18. So they're kind of targeting PvP players with that a little bit and stasis hunters as well. The base cooldown duration is increasing from 29 to 38. So that's a really rough one. And so we'll see what happens with that. But they're talking here about SHATTERDIVE and Revenant Hunter, talking about how it's much less lethal to players in PvP. However, they are increasing the shatter damage versus frozen PvE commands by 100%. So that's really cool. And they're increasing the Grim Harvest fragment stats from 2 to 3, which is amazing amazing. Love it. Next up for hunters, they are reducing the base cooldown for combination blow for top tree arc strider from 96 seconds to 15 seconds so that you don't have to use gambler's dodge with that tree. And then bottom tree night stalker, we're getting a reduce in vanish and smoke melee from 96 to 75. All right, on to Titan. They are updating the shoulder charges, so they're no longer making them one-shot players, but the sprint activation time is going to be reduced a little bit, so you don't have to run for as long in order to activate your shoulder charge, and they're increasing the range from 5.5 to 6.8, so I think that's kind of a nice change. We'll see how that works in PvP, how people enjoy it, but they're also increasing the targeting cone width by 10%, so maybe the stasis one will hit stuff a little bit easier maybe, and they're increasing the damage versus PvE combatants by 25%. There's some other specific melees in there as well if you're interested in that. They're also talking about the cooldowns on the barricades. So they're increasing the towering barricade by a few seconds, and they're reducing that rally barricade, trying to get people to use the rally barricade a little bit more, or be enticed to use it, I guess. All right, next up we've got Behemoth, which is the Titan Stasis, and this is really, really cool. They're increasing the fragment slots for the Diamond Lance from 1 to 3, and you can now spawn a Diamond Lance upon killing a PvE combatant with a stasis weapon, killing 3 players with stasis weapons in a single life, killing an enemy with a stasis ability, or shattering an enemy. So I think the Diamond Lance is going to be one of the go-to fragment slots for Behemoth Titan. I could see people using Behemoth Titan with Ager's Scepter and having that Diamond Lance. I know that Diamond Lance has also contributed to a couple bugs in the past, so I wouldn't be surprised if this change causes some weird bugginess going on. And then we got a couple other updates. We've got Bottom Tree Striker nerfs for PvP. Basically, they don't want it to be the dominant super in PvP, so they're tuning it down a little notch. Super energy gain from Fist of Havoc light attack now decays to minimum amount over 3 PvP kills, down from 7. They're increasing the base cooldown of the frontal assault melee to 106 seconds, and then Fist of Havoc, the heavy slam radius reduced from 8 meters to 6 meters. All right, almost done. Last one, Warlock. The uncharged melee for Warlock, they're actually reducing the melee range from 5.5 to 4.5 meters to match Hunter and Titan, but they are reducing the suppression time after melee. So I was aware, like I knew that Warlock's melee felt longer, like there was more range, but I didn't know that their back-to-back slaps were basically nerfed to have kind of a longer time on that. So that's interesting that they're changing all the classes to have the same melee. It kind of sucks because you want each class to kind of have its own like identity, but it gets really difficult when you have a game that has PvP as well. It's hard to have each class have their own kind of like identity unless you go so far as to do something like Overwatch, where each character has like basically their own specialized kit. Next up, they're talking about handheld supernova is basically getting the shoulder charge treatment. It's not going to be able to one-shot in PvP, so it now travels further and pushes enemies back, and they also increased the damage of handheld supernova and nova warp versus champions and bosses, which is super nice. So handheld supernova and nova warp could be great in like those solo lost sectors and a lot of like champion stuff. Finally, we're going to talk about Shadebender, which is the stasis class for Warlock, and they feel like it's the best super for shutting down other supers, and it doesn't really feel too great when you're in a super and you just get frozen immediately. So they reduce the shatter pulse damage versus enemy supers, and you have to now generally freeze and shatter all supers twice to kill someone. And then the last change for Stasis Warlock is while Bleak Watcher is equipped, all Stasis nades charge at the Glacier Grenade rate. Okay, that is it for that huge TWAB. So now that we know about the variable ability cooldowns and the super abilities and stuff that's being changed, Now we're going to go into our last TWAB, which now I realize I understand why people do this every week instead of all at once. I thought that I could summarize this a lot easier, but there is a lot of stuff going on. This last TWAB actually didn't have that much info in it as far as changes. However, it does mention that the 30th anniversary pack will be accessible exclusively on the platform it was purchased on, regardless of your cross-save setup. So make sure you purchase the 30th anniversary pack on each platform you intend to access it on. So it's just like a DLC, you have to buy it on both platforms. Also, the one thing from the previous TWAB that I did not mention, because this could be a separate rant video all on its own. You guys may not know, but I do play on Xbox for the most part, and I have Xbox Game Pass. They mentioned in the 11/18 TWAB that Destiny 2 is leaving Xbox Game Pass. So on December 8th, you're going to have to purchase all of those packs. If you don't have them, if you're only accessing through Game Pass, if you want to play or access any of that content. Anyways, that's a whole separate rant video. I can't believe they're doing that. It is kind of frustrating because it's a lot of old content that, in my opinion, should be free at this point. But I'm hoping that that weekend I'll be able to live stream here on YouTube. So definitely keep your eye out for that. Like I said in my previous video, I've been posting on Twitter a lot lately. So if you haven't followed me there, definitely go do that. Abby Hour, same as here. But that is it for all the TWABs of all the changes that are coming on December 7th. Obviously, there's probably gonna be a lot more in the patch notes, so we can go over that maybe on a live stream or something like that. All right, guys, so that is pretty much it for all the TWAB goodness of stuff that is happening that's coming in the patch for December 7th for the 30th anniversary. Obviously, there's probably going to be a lot more detail in the patch notes that come out, but this is kind of an overall look. I think it's really going in a good direction. I think these are some good changes. Obviously, the hunter dodge stuff I'm not as happy about because I'm a hunter main, but we'll see what happens when everything comes out. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the 30th anniversary, getting in that dungeon and getting to play all the new stuff and new weapons and stuff like that to hold us over till February, till Witch Queen. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.